My parents said I was on my own financially, then bought my sister a condo for her 21st. I quietly moved to another state. 4 years later, my thesis made national news, and they found out on Facebook like everyone else. The conversation happened 3 weeks before my 18th birthday. I can still see the way afternoon light filtered through the kitchen blinds, casting stripes across the granite countertop where my mother had arranged a plate of crackers and cheese that nobody touched. "We need to discuss your college plans, Lily," Dad said, settling into his usual chair at the head of the table. Mom sat to his right, her hands folded in that particular way. That meant a unified front had already been established. I'd worked my ass off for 4 years. Straight A's, captain of the debate team, volunteer work at the Children's Hospital every Saturday morning. My acceptance letter to Northwestern sat upstairs in my desk drawer, the scholarship covering about 60% of costs. I needed help with the rest, maybe $25,000 per year for housing, books, and expenses the financial aid didn't touch. "Your mother and I have been talking," Dad continued, straightening his tie, even though he'd been home from work for an hour. "We believe you're mature enough to handle your own finances now. It builds character, independence. We won't be contributing to your college expenses." The words hit like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, what?" Mom jumped in, her voice taking on that saccharine tone she used when delivering bad news. "Sweetheart, we have every confidence in you. You're so capable, so driven. Student loans are a normal part of the college experience for most young adults. You'll figure it out." "Madison's only 15, I said slowly, my brain struggling to process. "Are you planning the same for her?" The brief look my parents exchanged told me everything I needed to know. "Each child is different," Dad said, shifting in his chair. "Madison has different needs, different circumstances. Madison, who'd barely scraped by with C's and the occasional B, who'd quit every activity she'd ever started, who threw tantrums at 17 when she didn't get her way. Madison, who was younger, prettier, and had mastered the art of playing the baby of the family. I took out loans, all of them, worked 3 part-time jobs throughout college, sometimes sleeping 4 hours a night. I watched my roommates' parents take us out for dinner at nice restaurants, while I calculated whether I could afford to order more than a side salad. I wore the same rotation of clothes for 4 years, hunted for textbooks in every possible corner of the internet, and learned to survive on rice, beans, and whatever was on sale. Meanwhile, social media provided a steady stream of updates from home. Madison at the mall with Mom, carrying bags from stores where a single shirt cost what I spent on groceries for a month. Madison getting a brand new SUV for her 16th birthday, while I was driving a 1998 Honda Civic that required a specific sequence of key jiggles and prayers to start. Family vacations to Hawaii and Europe that I was never invited on, dismissed with, "Well, you're busy with school anyway." I called home less and less. Visits became obligatory appearances at major holidays where I'd sleep on the basement couch because Madison's room couldn't be disturbed, and the guest room had been converted into Mom's craft space. Junior year, I changed my major from pre-log to environmental science. A professor named Dr. Patricia Chen had given a guest lecture on microplastic pollution and freshwater ecosystems, and something clicked into place. Here was a problem that mattered, that I could sink my teeth into that affected real people in measurable ways. My parents' reaction was predictable. "So you're throwing away a lucrative career to play in dirt?" Dad asked during our quarterly phone call. "Environmental science is a growing field," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "There's actually a lot of opportunity." "Madison's been thinking about law school," Mom interrupted. "Isn't that interesting? Following in your original footsteps, Madison, who I'd helped through high school biology because she couldn't grasp the difference between mitosis and meiosis. Madison, who'd scraped into a state school with a 2.8 GPA and was currently majoring in communications while failing half her classes. Sure, law school was definitely in her future. I graduated with honors and a job offer from an environmental consulting firm in Seattle. The salary wasn't extraordinary, but it was mine. Earned through my work, my sleepless nights, my determination. Northwestern held its commencement ceremony on a bright Saturday in June. I sat among thousands of graduates, watching families stream into the stadium with balloons and flowers and proud smiles. My roommate Jasmine's parents had flown in from Boston, her little brother trailing behind with a giant teddy bear wearing a graduation cap. "You sure your family isn't coming?" Jasmine asked that morning as we adjusted our caps in the mirror. "Positive," I'd said, keeping my voice light. They couldn't make it work with their schedules. The truth was simpler. I hadn't told them the date, hadn't mentioned graduation at all beyond a brief text weeks earlier saying I'd be done in May. No response had come, which told me everything about their level of interest. So I walked across that stage alone, heard my name called, accepted my diploma, and smiled for the university photographer, with no one in the audience claiming me. Jasmine's family took me to dinner afterward, her mother hugging me tight and saying how proud they were, how much I had accomplished. The kindness from near strangers hurt more than my own family's absence. I moved 2 weeks after graduation. Didn't make a big announcement, just quietly packed my life into my dying Honda and drove for 3 days across the country. I found a tiny studio apartment in Capitol Hill, bought furniture from thrift stores and Facebook Marketplace, and started my new life. The distance felt like oxygen. Seattle was a revelation. Nobody knew me as the daughter who wasn't quite good enough, the sister who lived in Madison's shadow. I was just Lily Hartley, newly hired environmental consultant, starting fresh in a city where the mountains met the sea. The consulting firm was small but respected, working primarily with municipalities and private companies on environmental impact assessments. My first project involved analyzing soil contamination at a former industrial site slated for redevelopment. The work was technical, demanding, and exactly what I needed: problems with clear parameters and solutions I could actually solve. My supervisor, a woman named Karen Wu, who'd been in the industry for 20 years, took me under her wing. "You've got good instincts," she told me after I'd caught a discrepancy in a contractor's remediation proposal. "Don't second guess yourself so much." But second going was coded into my DNA after years of being told I wasn't quite measuring up. Every report I submitted, I checked 3 times. Every presentation I rehearsed until the words felt wooden in my mouth. The fear of failure, of proving my parents right about something, drove me harder than ambition ever could. My student loan payment started 6 months after graduation. The first bill arrived on a Tuesday, $847 per month for the next 10 years under the standard repayment plan. I stared at the number, doing the math. That was nearly a third of my take-home pay, gone before I could even think about saving or building any kind of financial cushion. I called the loan carrier and switched to an income-driven repayment plan. The monthly amount dropped to something more manageable, but the payoff timeline stretched to 25 years. I'd be paying for my education until I was in my late 40s, the interest accruing faster than I could chip away at the principal. Meanwhile, social media continued its steady drip of updates from Madison's life. The condo got a feature in one of Mom's posts, helping Maddie decorate her beautiful new place. She has such an eye for design. The photo showed furniture that cost more than my entire year's salary, art on the walls, a kitchen full of gleaming appliances. I started keeping a mental tally, though I knew it was unhealthy. The condo, $380,000. Madison's SUV, probably $45,000. Her sorority fees, spending money, spring break trips to Cancun and Miami, I estimated another $30,000 per year minimum. Meanwhile, above 65 degrees. The unfairness of it would hit me at random moments. Grocery shopping, when I put back a package of decent coffee because the cheap stuff was half the price. Driving past car dealerships, knowing my Honda was one breakdown away from leaving me stranded. Walking through downtown Seattle and seeing people my age in expensive clothes, carrying shopping bags, living lives that seemed impossibly distant from my own reality. My first winter in Seattle brought rain that felt personal, like the city itself was reflecting my internal landscape. I developed a routine: work until 6 o'clock or 7, stop at the cheapest grocery store on the way home, spend evenings reading research papers, and teaching myself advanced statistical analysis. Weekends meant laundry, meal prep for the week, and long walks around the city because they were free. I made friends slowly, a few colleagues from work, some people from a climbing gym where I'd gotten a deeply discounted membership. But I kept everyone at arm's length. terrified of questions about my family, of having to explain why I was alone in a new city with no support system. Then came the phone call that shifted everything. About 8 months into my Seattle life, it was a Friday evening in February. I was making dinner, rice and beans again, stretched with whatever vegetables had been on sale when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered, "Lily." Madison's voice was slurred, music thumping in the background. "Lily, oh my God, I can't believe you actually picked up." My hand tightened on the phone. "Madison, what do you want?" "I'm at this party, and there's this guy here who works in environmental something," and I was like, "That's what my sister does." And he asked where you worked, and I realized I have no idea. Like, I don't even know what city you're in. Isn't that crazy? Something sharp twisted in my chest. "You called to tell me you don't know where I live." "No, I called because she giggled, and I heard someone talking to her in the background." "Hold on. Chase wants to say hi. He thinks it's cool that you're an environmental person." "Madison, I'm hanging up." Wait. Mom wanted me to call you anyway. She's planning this big 4th of July thing and wants to know if you're coming home for it. It's been forever since we've seen you." I thought about my graduation, the empty seats where they should have been. I'm busy. Busy with what? "Come on, Lily. Don't be like that. We miss you, but we felt like a lie. I have to go, but Mom really wants." I hung up, stood in my tiny kitchen with my hands shaking, the rice boiling over on the stove, and felt something crystallize inside me. They didn't know where I lived, didn't know what I was doing with my life, who I was becoming, and that was an accidental. It was a consequence of years of disinterest that they now wanted to suddenly overcome because it was convenient for them. I blocked Madison's number. Then, in a fit of decisiveness, I went through my phone and deleted every family contact except for my parents' numbers, which I kept purely for emergencies. If they wanted to reach me, they'd have to work for it. That night marked a shift in how I approached my life in Seattle. I stopped waiting for some acknowledgement that I mattered, some recognition of the unfairness. Instead, I poured everything into building something they couldn't touch. At work, I started volunteering for the complex projects that others avoided. A contaminated wetland restoration that required navigating 3 different regulatory frameworks. I'd take it. A comprehensive water quality study that meant spending weekends collecting samples in the rain. Sign me up. Each success built my reputation, and within a year, I was leading projects that typically went to consultants with 5 or more years of experience. Karen pulled me aside one day after I presented findings to a difficult client who'd left satisfied. "You know, you don't have to prove yourself with every single project, right? I'm just doing my job. You're doing 3 people's jobs." She studied me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Whatever you're running from or toward, just make sure you're not running yourself into the ground." But the ground was exactly where I needed to be. In the field collecting samples from streams and rivers, I found something like peace. The work was methodical, scientific, removed from human drama and family dysfunction. Water didn't play favorites. Contamination didn't care about your last name or your parents' bank account. There was a purity to it that appealed to something deep in my soul. It was during one of these field surveys that I first noticed the microplastic problem. We were collecting sediment samples from a tributary of the Cedar River, and I spotted something odd under the microscope back at the lab. Tiny synthetic fibers, plastic fragments smaller than a grain of rice present in nearly every sample. "Is this normal?" I asked Karen, showing her the slides. She frowned. "More common than it should be. Microplastics are everywhere now. Why? The concentration seems high, really high." That observation became a side project, then a mild obsession. I started looking for microplastics in every sample we processed, documenting their presence, building an unauthorized database of what I was finding. The patterns were alarming. Higher concentrations near urban areas, particularly downstream from wastewater treatment plants, but present even in supposedly pristine locations. Then came Madison's 20th birthday, and social media exploded with the news. My Aunt Carol posted first, "So proud of my brother and sister-in-law for this amazing gift." The photo showed Madison holding keys in front of a sleek downtown condo, my parents beaming on either side of her. The caption on Mom's post read, "Our baby girl deserves the best as she starts her journey into adulthood." A special gift for our special girl. Hashtag proud parents, hashtag blessed. The condo had been purchased outright. No mortgage. I found the listing online within 20 minutes. Fury making my hands shake on my phone. $380,000 for a 2-bedroom unit with parking and a water view. I'd eaten ramen and rice for 4 years, worked myself to exhaustion, graduated with $97,000 in student loans that would take decades to pay off, and Madison got handed a condo worth nearly $500,000 for successfully turning 20. I sat in my studio apartment that night, surrounded by secondhand furniture and thrift store finds, and laughed. Actually laughed because the alternative was screaming or crying or both. The sheer audacity of it, the breathtaking inequality, had crossed some line from painful into absurd. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Lily, it's Maddie. Did you see? I got a condo. You should totally come visit and see it. Mom and Dad said I could have people stay over. We could do a sister's weekend in the city." I stared at the message for a long time. She genuinely didn't see it, didn't understand why I might not be thrilled about her completely unearned windfall. In Madison's world, things just appeared when she wanted them, and everyone should celebrate accordingly. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and looked at my student loan balance, $94,238.17 after a year of payments. I'd barely made a dent in the principal. At my current payment rate, I'd be chipping away at this debt until my 40s. All because my parents had decided I needed to learn independence while Madison needed what a downtown condo. The rage I felt was molten, all-consuming. I wanted to call them, to scream, to demand explanations for the blatant inequality. I wanted to post my own comment on those Facebook photos, laying out exactly what their building character approach had cost me. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to type out a message that would burn every bridge. I drafted it 3 times, each version more scathing than the last. I imagined their faces as they read it, the embarrassment as their friends and family saw the truth laid bare. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, not wanting to show them how much they'd hurt me. Maybe it was the realization that any response would give them what they wanted, my attention, my engagement, proof that they still mattered enough to provoke a reaction. Or maybe I just understood with sudden clarity that nothing I said would change anything. They'd made their choice years ago, and this condo was just the most recent, most expensive confirmation of what I already knew. In the hierarchy of their affection and support, I rank somewhere below comfort and convenience. Instead, I blocked them. All of them. Mom, Dad, Madison, the aunts and uncles and cousins who'd liked and commented on those posts without apparently seeing anything wrong with the situation. I blocked them on every platform, deleted their numbers from my phone, and made a decision. If I didn't exist enough to warrant basic fairness, then I wouldn't exist to them at all. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. It was strange, this absence where family obligation had been. No more wondering if I should call home. No more guilt about not visiting. No more mental energy spent on trying to understand their logic or win their approval. I went to work and threw myself into a new project, a comprehensive pollution assessment for a manufacturing facility. Spent my weekend in the lab processing samples and building data sets. Let the work consume me in a way that felt productive rather than destructive. Karen noticed the change. "You seem different," she commented on Monday. "Good different. I made some decisions about my personal life." I told her, "Cut out some toxic relationships." She nodded knowingly. "Family? Is it that obvious? I've been doing this long enough to recognize the look of someone who's carrying weight that isn't theirs to carry." "Good for you." The silence from my end was met with silence from theirs for exactly 2 weeks. Then my work phone rang, the number I'd stupidly never thought to change. "Lily Hartley," I answered professionally. "Lily, sweetheart, it's Mom." Her voice had that particular tone, the one that meant she was upset, but trying to sound reasonable. "We've been trying to reach you. All your numbers seem to be disconnected or something." My grip tightened on the phone. "They're not disconnected. I blocked you." A pause. "You blocked us. Your own family?" Yes, Lily. That's extremely hurtful. We don't understand what we did to deserve this treatment. If this is about Madison's condo, it's about 5 years of decisions. I interrupted. It's about student loans versus gifts. It's about working 3 jobs while watching vacation photos. It's about every single choice you've made that showed me exactly where I stood. We gave you independence. We believed in you enough to let you stand on your own feet. Madison needed more support because she's the favorite. We can both stop pretending otherwise. Mom's voice went sharp. That's not fair. We love both our daughters equally. We simply parent you differently based on your individual needs. You were always so capable, so independent. Madison needs more guidance. The rationalization was masterful. I had to admit they'd reframed blatant favoritism as personalized parenting. Inequality is appropriate differentiation. I'm hanging up now, I said. Don't call this number again. Lily, you're being childish about this. When you're ready to have an adult conversation, I hung up. Then I called our office manager and asked her to screen calls from that number, saying it was a personal matter I didn't want to deal with during work hours. An email arrived that evening from Dad this time. The subject line read, "Disappointed." Lily, your mother is very upset after your call today. I'm disappointed in your behavior and your attitude. We have always done our best to provide for both you and your sister according to your needs and abilities. The fact that you can't appreciate our approach says more about your maturity level than our parenting. You were given every opportunity to succeed. The fact that you chose to take out loans rather than pursuing scholarships more aggressively or budgeting more carefully is not our responsibility. We taught you to be independent, and you are. You should be thanking us, not throwing tantrums like a child. Madison's gift is not your concern. What we do for one child has no bearing on the other. Until you can accept that and approach us with respect, I think it's best we maintain some distance. Dad, I read it twice, looking for any hint of self-awareness, any acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, they'd been unfair. Nothing. Justifications and blame shifting, wrapped in disappointment that I hadn't gracefully accepted my role as the less favored daughter. I archived the email without responding, created a filter to send anything from their addresses straight to trash. If they wanted distance, I'd give them a notion of it. That night, I pulled up my research on microplastics, the side project that had been consuming my spare time. The data was compelling, but patterns clear. What had started as curiosity had evolved into something substantial, something that deserved serious attention. I sent an email to Dr. Chen, my former professor, who'd first sparked my interest in environmental science. We'd stayed in loose contact since graduation, occasional emails about research developments and career advice. Dr. Chen, I hope this email finds you well. I'm reaching out because I've stumbled onto something in my consulting work that I think has significant research potential. I've been documenting microplastic contamination in Pacific Northwest freshwater systems, and the concentrations I'm finding are alarming. I know you've moved to UW and are building a research program there. Would you be interested in discussing this further? I have about 18 months of data collected, and I think it could be the foundation for important work. Best, Lily Hartley. She responded within 3 hours. Lily, very interested. Can you meet this week? I'm teaching Tuesday and Thursday, but free other days. Bring whatever data you have. The microplastic issue is exactly the kind of applied research I want to be doing. Let's talk. Patricia, we met at a coffee shop near the UW campus on Wednesday afternoon. I brought my laptop with 18 months of unauthorized data collection, spreadsheets, maps, preliminary analysis, photographs of samples under microscopy. Dr. Chen went through it methodically, asking sharp questions about my collection methods, sampling protocols, analytical techniques. Her expression grew more serious as she scrolled through the data. This is significant work, Lily. She finally said, the spatial distribution, the concentration levels, the correlation with urban density. You're documenting something important here. I know it's not academically rigorous, I started. I was just collecting samples from consulting projects, so the locations aren't systematically chosen, but they're real-world data points from actual sites, she interrupted. That has value, and it gives us a foundation to build something more comprehensive. She looked at me directly. How would you feel about pursuing a graduate degree? I'm launching a major research initiative on freshwater microplastic contamination. I need someone with your analytical skills and, frankly, your drive. Full assistantship, tuition coverage, and a stipend. My heart hammered. I have student loans, a job. I can't just. The stipend isn't much, but it's something. You could work part-time at your consulting firm if they'd allow it. And yes, you have loans, but you'd also have the chance to do research that could actually make a difference. Isn't that why you got into this field? I thought about my parents' email, their disappointment in my choices, their certainty that I was being childish and ungrateful. Then I thought about what would infuriate them most. Not anger, not confrontation, but success they couldn't claim and couldn't diminish. Yes, I said, I'm interested. So, I channeled everything into work. Every ounce of hurt, every moment of anger, every memory of eating 25-cent packets of ramen while my sister got designer handbags. I volunteered for the difficult projects, the ones that required extra hours and complex problem solving. I published papers, presented at conferences, and built a reputation for thoroughness and innovation. Dr. Chen, who'd moved to the University of Washington, reached out during my second year in Seattle. I'm starting a research project on microplastic contamination in Pacific Northwest waterheads, she said over coffee. I need someone with your analytical skills and drive. Interested in pursuing a master's degree? I can offer a full assistantship. I started the program that fall while continuing part-time at the consulting firm. Sleep became a suggestion again, but this time it was different. This time, I was working towards something I'd chosen, something that mattered to me, not scrambling to survive an unfair situation. My research focused on microplastic accumulation in freshwater mussels and its effects on local food chains. The work was painstaking, involving countless hours of sample collection, laboratory analysis, and data modeling. I spent weekends hip-deep in streams, summers managing undergraduate research assistants, nights staring at spreadsheets until the numbers blurred. The data told a story that became impossible to ignore. The concentrations we were finding weren't just concerning, they were catastrophic. Microplastics were accumulating in organisms at every level of the food chain, with implications that stretched far beyond the local ecosystem. My thesis expanded beyond what anyone had anticipated. What started as a regional study became a comprehensive analysis of freshwater microplastic pollution across the Pacific Northwest, with modeling that projected national implications. I connected dots between industrial discharge, agricultural runoff, and consumer waste streams in ways that previous research hadn't fully explored. Dr. Chen encouraged me to be bold with my conclusions. Don't soften this, she said, reviewing my final draft. The data speaks for itself. Let it. I defended my thesis on a Thursday in April. The committee's questions were rigorous, pushing me to justify every conclusion, every methodological choice. I stood my ground, backed by 2 years of meticulous research and analysis that I knew was sound. This is some of the most comprehensive work on freshwater microplastic contamination we've seen, one committee member said. Have you considered submitting this to major journals? I had. Papers were already in preparation, but Dr. Chen had another suggestion. There's a science writer at the Seattle Times who's been following microplastic research, she mentioned after my defense. Rebecca Torres, she's legitimate, doesn't sensationalize. Might be worth having a conversation. Rebecca and I met the following week. She'd reviewed my thesis abstract and came prepared with intelligent questions that demonstrated actual understanding of the science. We talked for 3 hours, diving deep into the implications of the research. This isn't just an environmental story, Rebecca said, her recorder still running. This is a public health story, an economic story, a policy story. The contamination levels you're documenting, the bioaccumulation patterns, the projected spread. Lily, this is significant. The article ran on a Sunday morning in June, front page above the fold. Rebecca had done exactly what she promised, presented the science accurately while making it accessible. The headline read, "You researcher documents alarming microplastic levels in Northwest watersheds. Implications stretch far beyond region." By Monday afternoon, it had been picked up by the Associated Press. Tuesday brought calls from NPR, The Washington Post, and CNN. Wednesday, I did my first television interview, trying not to look terrified as cameras focused on me in the studio. The story went national by the end of the week. Not because of sensationalism or hype, but because the research was solid and the implications were undeniable. I documented something that mattered, and suddenly everyone wanted to talk about it. My phone rang constantly with interview requests, speaking invitations, consultation offers. The university's communications department handled the coordination, seemingly thrilled to have research from their graduate program making headlines. I did the interviews, gave the talks, answered the questions, stayed focused on the science, on the implications, on what needed to happen next in terms of policy and further research. This wasn't about me, it was about the work. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't satisfaction in watching my name appear in major publications, in seeing my research discussed on national news programs, in having my inbox filled with emails from researchers at institutions across the country. Through it all, I never thought about my family seeing it. They were blocked, invisible to me on social media, absent from my life in every meaningful way. I'd moved forward without them, built something significant without their support or approval. I should have known the universe had a sense of irony. My college roommate Jasmine called on a Saturday morning, her voice tight with suppressed excitement. "Lily, you need to check your Facebook messages like right now. Use a computer, not your phone." "Why? What's going on?" "Just do it. You're going to want to see this." I opened my laptop, logged into Facebook for the first time in weeks. My message requests folder contained 47 unread messages. The most recent was from my Aunt Carol, sent at 2:37 a.m. "Lily, I don't know if you'll see this, but I wanted to reach out. I saw the news coverage about your research. I had no idea you were doing such important work. I'm so sorry for everything. Your parents are beside themselves. Please consider talking to them." I scrolled through the others. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, high school acquaintances, family, friends, all essentially the same message. "Saw the news. So impressive. Please reconnect with your family." Then I saw the screenshots Jasmine had sent separately. Someone had forwarded her the posts from my mother's Facebook page. The first was from Thursday, shortly after the Seattle Times article went viral. Mom had shared the article with the caption, "Our brilliant daughter. We always knew Lily would do amazing things. So proud. Hashtag proud mom, #scientist." The comments were everything you'd expect. Friends congratulating her, asking why she'd never mentioned my work before, saying how wonderful it must be to have such an accomplished daughter. The second post was a photo, one I'd never seen before, me at my high school graduation, wearing my cap and gown, holding my diploma. The caption read, "Throwback to Lily's graduation. She was always our little scientist, even then. Can't wait to celebrate her recent success. #FBF had proud family." I stared at the screen, something like disbelief wearing with fury. 4 years of silence, and now suddenly, she was a proud mother, basking in reflected glory she'd done nothing to earn. There were more. Dad had updated his profile to include father of environmental researcher Lily Hartley in his bio. Madison had posted a story. "My big sister, the genius, always knew she was going places." They were rewriting history in real time, claiming pride and connection they'd never demonstrated when it mattered. The thing that struck me most wasn't the audacity, though that was breathtaking. It was the comments from people who didn't know better, who believed the narrative being constructed. "You must be so proud. What a wonderful family. She clearly gets her intelligence from you." Jasmine called back, "So, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking they have absolutely no shame." "Are you going to respond, call them out?" I considered it. Imagine writing a post detailing exactly how much support they provided, listing out the student loan debt versus the condo, the 3 jobs versus the family vacations. It would be satisfying, certainly, vindication in its purest form. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of that 18-year-old girl who'd wanted so badly to scream about the unfairness and had chosen silence instead. Maybe it was the recognition that engaging would give them something they didn't deserve, access to my energy, my time, my emotional labor. Or maybe it was simply that I'd spent 4 years building a life they knew nothing about, and that obscurity had been a gift I'd given myself. No, I told Jasmine. I'm not going to do anything. Nothing, really. They're blocked. They'll stay blocked. As far as I'm concerned, they found out the same way everyone else did, through the news. If they want to play proud parents on Facebook, that's their choice. But they don't get access to me, to my life, to any part of what I've accomplished. That's incredibly mature of you. It's not maturity, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. It's boundaries. They decided I was on my own financially, that I needed to build character through struggle while Madison got handed everything. Fine, I built something. But they don't get to claim any part of it now. The calls started that evening. My work phone, which I'd stupidly never changed, I let them go to voicemail. Mom's voice was teary. Lily, sweetheart, we saw the news. We're so incredibly proud of you. Please call us back. We miss you so much and want to celebrate this achievement together. Dad's was more measured. Lily, it's Dad. We understand you might be upset about some things, but family is family. We'd like to talk, clear the air. This is a big moment in your life, and we should be part of it. Madison's was perhaps the most galling. Lils, it's Maddie. Oh my God, you're like famous. This is so cool. We should totally meet up so you can tell me all about it. Maybe I could visit Seattle. We could do Sisters Weekend. I deleted them all without finishing listening. The emails came next. Long, rambling messages about misunderstandings and hurt feelings, about how they'd always loved me, that they'd supported me in their own way, about how families should stick together during important moments. Nothing about the loans, nothing about the condo, nothing that acknowledged the fundamental inequality that had defined our relationships for years. I set up an autofilter that sent anything from their addresses straight to trash. Dr. Chen noticed my distraction during our research meeting the following week. Everything okay? You seem elsewhere. I gave her the abbreviated version. Her expression shifted from surprise to something like anger. Let me get this straight, she said slowly. They provided no financial support for your education. You worked yourself to exhaustion to graduate, and now they want to claim credit for your success? Apparently family is family, I said, echoing Dad's voicemail. Family is people who show up when it matters, Dr. Chen replied sharply. Not people who appear when there's glory to claim. You don't owe them anything, Lily. Not access, not forgiveness, not even acknowledgement. The validation from someone I respected so deeply meant more than I'd expected. Thank you, I mean it. What you've accomplished, you did despite them, not because of them. Don't let them rewrite that narrative. The media attention continued for several weeks. I gave presentations at conferences, consulted with environmental agencies, and watched as my research influenced policy discussions at the state and federal levels. Job offers arrived from consulting firms, research institutions, and environmental nonprofits. Through it all, my family's attempts at contact persisted like background noise. Voicemails, emails, messages through mutual acquaintances. Aunt Carol showed up at the university once, intercepted by department staff before she could reach me. She said she just wanted to talk, my advisor's assistant told me afterward. I told her you weren't available and she needed to leave. Was that okay? That was perfect, thank you. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent my entire childhood and young adult life trying to be good enough, accomplished enough, worthy enough of their attention and support. Now I'd achieved something genuinely significant, and they were clamoring for access I had no intention of granting. 6 months after the story broke, I accepted a position at a major environmental research institute in Oregon. Better salary, better resources, better opportunities to expand my research. I moved to Portland in September, once again packing my life into boxes and driving down the coast to start fresh. I didn't tell them, didn't update any social media with my location, didn't mention it to any mutual contacts. As far as my family knew, I was still in Seattle, still unreachable, still living a life they had no part in. My college friend Tyler reached out around the holidays. Saw your mom posted about how hard it is having a daughter who's too busy saving the world to come home for Christmas. The martyrdom is pretty thick. Sounds about right. You doing okay with all of it? The question made me pause and actually consider, was I okay? There was still anger, sure, and probably always would be. Hurt that had scarred over but remained tender to the touch. But underneath it was something unexpected, peace. Yeah, I said, meaning it. I actually am. They don't get to have this, Tyler. They don't get to have me, my success, my time, my energy, any of it. and I'm completely fine with that. Good. You deserve people who show up for you. I had those people now. Dr. Chen, who'd mentored me and pushed me to be bold. Jasmine and Tyler and other friends who'd supported me through the hard years. Colleagues who respected my work and challenged me to improve it. A community in Portland that welcomed me. My family had given me one gift, though they'd never intended it. They taught me that I didn't need them, that I could build a life, a career, a future entirely on my own terms, that their approval or pride or love wasn't necessary for me to thrive. The student loans would take years to pay off, a monthly reminder of the choice they'd made. But every payment felt like proof that I'd survived their decision to cut me loose. Every accomplishment was mine alone, earned without their help, achieved despite their neglect. A year after the thesis news broke, I was invited to speak at a major environmental conference in D.C. My research had spawned follow-up studies across the country, influenced new regulations on industrial discharge, and shifted the conversation around plastic pollution. During the Q&A after my presentation, someone asked about my inspiration for pursuing environmental science. The real answer was complicated. It was Dr. Chen's lecture, yes, but it was also rage transmuted into purpose. It was every slight and every inequity channeled into determination. It was the decision to build something that mattered when I couldn't have the things I'd wanted. But I kept it simple. I had a professor who showed me that environmental science was about solving real problems for real people. That resonated with me. The rest followed from there. Afterward, at the reception, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Lily, it's Madison. I got your number from the university. We really need to talk. Mom's not doing well, and Dad thinks you should know. Please call. I blocked the number and slipped my phone back into my pocket. Someone once told me that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. I'd moved beyond anger into something colder and more permanent. My family existed in my past as a lesson learned, nothing more. They'd said I was on my own financially, and they'd meant it as a punishment, a way to build character through hardship. They'd given Madison a condo and me a stack of loan documents, and they'd expected me to accept the inequality without complaint. What they'd actually done was set me free. Free from obligation, from the need for their approval, from the desperate desire to be treated fairly within a system that was never going to be fair. I built a life they knew nothing about, published research they only learned about through news coverage, moved to cities they couldn't find me in, created success they had no part in. And when they tried to claim it anyway, to drape themselves in my achievements like borrowed clothes, I'd done the one thing they never expected. I'd let them have their Facebook posts and their public pride while giving them nothing real. They found out about my thesis the same way everyone else did, because that's all they were, everyone else. Not parents in any meaningful sense, not family that mattered, just people who shared my DNA and nothing more. The satisfaction in that wasn't loud or obvious. It was quiet, steady, and entirely mine, just like everything else I built.